Welcome back to The Contender. I'm Congresswoman Erin Houchin, and today we have the privilege of highlighting an extraordinary family from Southern Indiana. Emily and John Gibson of Salem are being honored in Washington, D.C. as angels in adoption. Their journey into foster care and adoption is a powerful story of perseverance, faith, and unconditional love. They didn't set out seeking recognition, but they saw children in need and answered the call. Today, we get to hear directly from them about their experience and the challenges they faced along the way. Emily and John, welcome to The Contender.
Thank you for having us.
So we'll just have a conversation about your journey in adoption and foster care. I've been a small part of that journey, just trying to be helpful along the way as a state legislator. But your faith and your perseverance, as we mentioned in the opener, is I think something that's very meaningful. Continuing on your adoption and continuing your adoption story for all of your children that you've adopted despite some of the challenges that you've faced. John, this is your first time to Washington, D.C.
Yep.
How has the experience been so far?
It's been amazing, actually. Yeah. I didn't realize that everything was so close together. Yeah. I thought, that the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Memorial and everything were kind of spread out, but I didn't realize everything was just right here.
Yeah, everything's pretty compact until you walk it.
Yeah.
And then you realize it's a little farther than it looks.
You're standing at the Washington Monument and you look at it and you're like, oh, there's the Lincoln Memorial. You can go right there. Yeah. And then, an hour later, you're finally making it to the steps.
Exactly right. See, yes, yeah. You'll fit right in here, John. That's great. Emily, thank you for being here today. I've known you guys a while. I have a lot of respect for you and your family and everything that you have been through in your adoption journey. It was my pleasure to honor you with this award, and I appreciate you coming on the podcast to talk about it. So take us back to the beginning of your foster care journey. What prompted you and first moved you to open your home for foster children?
So back in, 2014, I had a medical incident where I was told I couldn't have any more children. And so that's what brought us there. We always said we wanted 2 children and then eventually adopt. That was our plan from the get-go. And we were newly married. We had a 2-year-old. And so that hit us hard. And we knew that, we had looked at IVF and we couldn't afford that. And we'd looked at different things. And so we had just prayed about it. And one day I spoke to a friend of ours and she had also been through the foster care system. And I just asked her, I said, who did you go through and how did you get involved? And she directed us to NIAP, and we got...
And what is NIAP?
NIAP is National Youth Advocacy Program, and that is who we went through to be licensed for foster care. And they were great. We would not have been able to do it without them. I always tell people that, don't ever try and do it by yourself. Get an agency that can help you, because knowing the ins and outs of DCS alone, or just the rules and regulations that you have to abide by, it's so much more helpful to have someone that is in the thick of it and knows it, just for the support. And so we went through them and we got licensed pretty quickly, actually, when we decided. I think I came home and I told John, I was like, I called NIAP today and they're going to be here tomorrow to do training. And he was like, you did what?
Now, was this a conversation that you had about fostering when she found NIAP?
Yeah.
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 It was one of those that I just kind of sprung on him.
She has a tendency to do that. But my grandparents have been foster parents for 30 some years.
Oh, wow.
So, I've been around it, but it was, they just fostered to, between, when the kids got taken away and then they went back. There was never really a No, no, no. They ended up, they did adopt my uncle years ago, but he was special needs, so I mean, it was kind of a different case. But I mean, I watched kids go in and out of their home for years. So.
So when you are beginning this journey, I know it was very difficult, as we, experienced today still, and it should be. It's a tough thing. But I have to admire the faith that you have and the faith that it took to take this leap, and what a blessing, and admire what a blessing that you've been to the children that are in your care.
I always say, one of the biggest things that I say that we learned from this is, I always thought it was, like I said, our plan to have 2 kids and then adopt, and that was always what we had planned. But all in all, it's not our plan, it's God's plan. And I think that's not necessarily where we went wrong, but that is one of the things that we learned, is that this is not our story. It is His story. And if we learned one thing through this process, it was that our faith was what was made stronger through all of it.
Yeah. So what was the experience like for your family? I know, John, you mentioned that fostering had been part of your story growing up. What was it like for your family? Was this something that you received family support for? And did it change? Did anything in your perspective before fostering and after fostering, did anything change?
I would say, our family, both sides of our family, were very supportive of the children that we were able to love on, and they took them in as their own. They took them right in and didn't blink an eye. And so I feel like if we, number one, would not have been able to do it without the support from our families, but it also changed our perspective too, because I didn't realize the depths of the ins and outs of becoming a foster parent. I knew the training and I knew the things of that nature, but the extent of how limited you are as a parent, but you're expected to care for this parent or this child day in and day out.
As if you're
as if they're your parent, but you don't have the rights of a parent. And that, I think, is what changed my perspective. I didn't realize that was such a big part of it. We felt very restricted in many areas along the way, but
I know, talking to you during those times and just trying to be a resource for you both in those difficult moments, dealing with the state agencies, it had to be terrifying, just knowing how connected you get to a child that you want to adopt and be mom and dad, a forever family. And it's sometimes the obstacles in the agencies that are kind of standing in the way of that.
It absolutely is.
Like for instance, our first one, he needed a haircut. Yeah. And we said, hey, we're going to take him to get his haircut. And they said, well, we need to contact the birth parents first to see if it's okay. Really? The child's got hair going down over his eyes and we can't take him to get his hair trimmed?
Yeah, something that simple becomes a bureaucratic problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just feel I know that their job, they have a role in their job and things of that nature, but I feel like if they could look at it as what's best for the child, if a foster parent could have more say in the decisions of what's best for the child, it would, I think, go a lot smoother for the child. And that's one of the things we didn't realize.
This may postdate your adoptions, but when I was this is part of your story and many other foster families in Indiana, was why I authored Senate Bill 1, which was basically the foster parents' Bill of Rights, a bill that would strengthen the rights of foster parents and the voice of foster parents in the courtroom. Many times you guys would have the closest information about kids in your care, the most current information about their story, to be able to deliver that information to the court, but yet you were limited in communicating that, and being able to speak freely about your experience and that of the children in your care. So I hope that some of that has improved.
I do think so. I think that was during, I think, we got to be a part of that, and that was.
Yeah, you guys were at the bill signing for this bill.
Yes, so
yeah.
I didn't get to go. It was just.
Oh yeah, Emily was at the bill signing. Yeah, that's right.
So that was a huge.
Yeah. And your little one, he was there too. We went to lunch together. That was I remember that day. It was a great day.
So I do think that has helped in a lot of the sense, but just not realizing all of the things that you are restricted as a parent. I mean, I think that was one of the biggest things that we learned from it was this isn't just easy. It's not a walk in the park. It's not just taking a child in and babysitting per se. It's,
And as much as you have love for these kids and love in your heart to open your home to kids that need families, the bureaucracy makes that a challenge. Because you, correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably many times felt the stress of what happens if I love this child and they go home and then, or they go to some other family and they're not in our home. And you did have some of those scares. Can you talk to us a little bit about those times?
So we actually had a little guy for over a year, and things were looking like we were going in the route that he was going to stay with us. And then all of a sudden, one day, we got a call that, we were to be in the courtroom the next week, and there was someone that had showed up out of nowhere. And it was 2 weeks later, we had to say goodbye. Yeah. And that is probably one of the hardest things.
I've seen that at least 3 times, your story and others. I worked with a family when I was working for Child Services one time that this was not my case, but I was on the adoption team. They had this little boy from the time he was a baby until he was 4 years old. The only family he had ever known was his foster family. And it went to the adoption team, and a family member showed up who was some cousin that had never been in the picture. And because this was a blood relative, the adoption team, over my objections, placed this child and removed the child from the foster family, put him on overnight visits, and then ultimately the adoption went through and this child was adopted. The child found their forever family, right, and their blood family, right, but it was so extremely difficult for this family, this foster family who had thought that this was, this had been their child for 4 years, that they stopped fostering completely. And so credit to you guys for continuing through the challenges that inherently come with fostering through our child services system, and the uncertainties that come with that, and still loving these kids during the time that they're with you. How many children did you foster and have you fostered before your adoption?
5 total, correct? 4 total.
Yeah,
4 total.
4 total.
Mm-hmm. 4 total.
And you have 3 children. Mm-hmm. You have your oldest son who's in middle school, mm-hmm, and then you have 2 other children. Yes. How old are they now?
One is 8. We have a little boy who's 8, and we have a little girl who is 4.
That's terrific.
Yes. So they keep us busy.
So what would you say to other families that are considering fostering and adopting? What tips would you give them on preparing yourself for that journey and seeing it through despite the challenges?
I think the first thing I would tell them is initially be very intentional about praying about your decision. It is not something to take lightly, but it is something to take very seriously, because our foster care system is is in need. I mean, in dire need of parents to have, or for kids to have have a family. I think one of the things that always was said to me, which is one of my pet peeves, everyone would always say, I could never do that because I get too attached. And I'm like, yes, you do. That's the point. We get attached. We don't not get attached. That's what you're supposed to do. And they would say, I would never be able to give them back if something happened, or, even if we had them for a short period of time, I would never be able to give them back. And I mean, yes, that's the point. Those kids deserve to have someone be attached to them. Right. And I have always said, I'll cry myself to sleep many nights to know that I gave, them a place to call home for however long it was that, they were in our homes. Or
I love that you said that these kids deserve to have someone that is attached.
They do.
That's absolutely right. Mm-hmm. Because if you go into that and you don't have that, they'll feel that. Mm-hmm. They'll feel that they're not attached, and they're too vulnerable to not have caring adults in their lives. And we've seen successfully over the years that, and some foster families can do this and some can't, but they've fostered kids that end up going home, and they still have a relationship with those kids and the birth family, and it becomes an extended part of their own families that they're able to be mentors and still be in kids' lives. And sometimes that's the plan that God has for not just these kids, but their parents. I remember I got a call from you at one point, and if you care to talk about it, I got a call from you at one point. You were heading on this adoption is going to happen. And I'm not sure if it happened twice to you, but I know it happened at least once where the adoption plan was in place, and you got a new caseworker. And the new caseworker is intent on trying to find a bio parent who's been out of the picture maybe forever, maybe the whole time. And you got a call one day, despite being on an adoption plan and having, I think, even a hearing set for finalizing the adoption. The caseworker calls and says, oh, by the way, we've found biological dad, and I need you to have him ready or her ready for pickup to start home visits. And then we're going to transition to overnight visits if that works. Did that happen? And what was that
That
like?
did happen.
Did it happen just the one time or more than one time?
Just the one time. But we had similar challenges the second time as well. And it ended up being that that's one of the things that I think I had thought about to mention is one of the biggest challenges with the agencies is that the turnover in caseworkers. I think the first couple of cases that we probably had 7 or 8 different caseworkers. And when you have a child from the beginning, and these cases take 2 and 3 years to complete, you have 7 or 8 people that are new to the case. So then you have to go back to the beginning, and they don't know the history, and
They don't have a relationship with you that you've built with your other caseworker to have the trust.
Right, or with the child. The child is, starting all over. And so we had that happen where we received a phone call that they would have to go on a visit that Saturday with a bio parent, and never unsupervised, never had seen them
18
before. Months. Yeah, I mean, old enough to know a stranger.
Yeah.
And so.
Was it your son or your daughter?
It was our son.
So he would have to go on an unsupervised visit at 18 months old, having never met this person.
Yeah.
And so we were so confused because we were a month out from our finalization and our TPR hearing. And
that would be to make sure that people at home understand, you'd been in it 18 months at that point. The standard in Indiana to file a termination if there's no parent involvement is 15 out of the last 22 months, which you had surpassed. they set those standards in law so that children can get permanency and they're not constantly in limbo. But to do that would have been starting over.
Right.
Not just the fear and concern that you'd have for this child who is your child at that, he's in your home, he's you're moving forward for adoption, and the thought that essentially I try to have people think about it in terms of, would you send your biological child with a stranger for the day without knowing anything? And absolutely you wouldn't. And in these cases, to your point, Emily, they should be like your biological children at that point, because that's how you have to have that bond, and they deserve that. So that had to be terrifying.
It was very terrifying, and that's, I think, at the point when I reached out to you, because I had no other idea. I mean, we were being made do this, and I did reach out to our CASA worker, and he was very supportive and things of that nature, but it was all because of one form wasn't signed and filed correctly, and so this caseworker thought he was going to just save the day in his eyes and get this to happen, and luckily, I mean, it all worked out, and thank you so much for helping with that. But it was a very scary time. I tell people, who have thought about fostering, I'm like, it's a roller coaster. I'm not gonna lie, it's like an out of control roller coaster that you can't get off of, and because with the bad, there are always good days too. All of our children under our roof have been our children. It doesn't, to me, adoption doesn't change blood, or, I mean, our children are our children. God was just creative in how he brought them to us.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that's how it's always been to us. And from the first days of sitting with them in the hospital, those were our children. We get attached very easily. So that's just kind of how we've always looked at it.
Talk to us a little bit about some of the joys. We've talked about the challenges. What are the joys of adoption?
I mean, getting to watch them grow. I mean, knowing that they're going to get a better life than they would ever have, or you assume they would never get the life that they're having.
I think one of the biggest joys is being able to watch the milestones that they meet, even though the challenges that they were faced with at birth, they didn't choose that road that they were delivered on. But to be able to see them surpass the challenges and the obstacles that were put in their way is such a joyful thing. But not only that, but just seeing their unconditional love. Our children are very young, and our family's always been, we openly talk about, things, but we don't go around saying, you were adopted. We always tell our children that, you were given to us by God. And there's no other explanation for it. When those hard conversations come down the road, we'll have those. But to us, they were brought to us in a different way. And we always just say, they were a gift from God. And they truly were. It's just a different avenue that we had to go through. And the joy of that, seeing that play out, is enough to just fill your heart. And it overlooks the bad of what, I can replay several days that I was in tears. But looking back now, I would do it all over again.
Yeah. I think some of the most, joyous moments in my heart is when I can see on social media when those adoptions went through, and the big family and friend support system that have been there on those days just to cheer you guys on and to love on you and your kids. That always warmed my heart to see those days come. And I know you guys are probably thinking back right now, just memories of those moments, and how much relief and just overwhelming joy that you had to feel that the adoptions were done, that the challenges at least with the process, you could turn a corner and just love on your family.
And that was, those were 2 great days that, we, like you said, we have an amazing support. Our friends and our family and our church family at any moment were there. They showed up in huge quantities in different ways as far as just praying or showing up physically. And those were great memories that one day we'll get to sit down and share with the kids of, their picture on a fat head, or the shirts that had the kids' pictures on it, So it was all just, it was great. It was one of the best days of, just being able to breathe a little easier and knowing that we made it.
Yeah. What's it been like for your oldest son? Has he had questions that you've had to address? And how's he doing?
He honestly knows no different.
Yeah.
He doesn't ask questions. He just knows that those are his siblings, and that's how it's always been. It's just love.
Yep.
And I think if I was to sit him down and ask him, he would 100% talk to me. But I don't think he's ever questioned.
Probably like you, John, growing up, this was your life. I remember somebody asked my kids one time, like, what's it like, the job that I have? And they looked at this person like, what are you talking about? This is what we do.
Yes.
So I imagine it's the same.
One of the things that I always tease and say, Paxton he's just a kind of happy-go-lucky kind of guy. And so he's just, he's always been just there for it. He's a great older sibling, and
Well, he's got good parents. They all do.
yeah, he's pretty, but as far as, knowing that he was 2.5.
Yeah.
Well, it was probably a little longer than that.
He might have been.
He was,
He was probably
young.
3,
Young.
3.5
And
whenever
at that
we got our
point,
first one.
He just wanted a sibling, and that was his sibling. So, he's just
His brother and sister.
Yep. Yep.
Emily, you might not think of yourself as an advocate. You're not out here lobbying or in Indianapolis lobbying, but you have been an advocate, not just for your own family, but for other foster families, because of your willingness to reach out and share your story and help us as policymakers do better. If it weren't for your story and many others who reached out as a representative of my constituents, I wouldn't have known necessarily. Now, I had experience in the system as a family case manager, but to know the current status and what needs to happen to support foster families and children in foster care at that time. So you are an advocate still today, being here and sharing your story. And coming up for the bill signing and getting to bring your little one with you. So he also is an advocate for kids, other kids that have the story to share on adoption.
I said I would go scream it from a mountaintop, just especially when we were living in the thick of the frustrations. And one of our biggest supports in the process too was also our CASA workers. I serve on the board as a board member of our CASA in Washington County, and it was one of those things that I just really wanted to make sure that these kids had someone to lean on, someone else that was going to fight for them in their corner. And so I 100% can I can feel it in my bones just thinking, just to try and fight for the kids. At school, when we have a student come in that's a foster placement that's maybe there for just a short time, I try always to make a connection with them, just to let them know that there's someone at school that cares for them a lot. We have many employees that care for them, but I just feel a different connection to them, and probably just through, I know what they're walking through, and I feel drawn to those kids for some reason.
We've had some former foster youth come through here who aged out of foster care. And I have told them I still feel like they're my kids. You know, even if I never had any interaction with them, because they have gone through the foster care system, you feel a connection and you feel compelled to try to be helpful to those kids. And if nothing else, just to help them to have maybe a little bit of a better day.
Yes, I would love for all kids to be able to feel as loved as what I know we love our kids. You know, I want, you never know when a child, like you said, may come back or need someone to remember. You know, I know that I could reach out to this person that may have just been a short conversation. And so if we can plant those kinds of seeds just in everyday life, not necessarily with foster kids, but I seem to be drawn. That's where I'm drawn to.
Well, there's such a need. I mean, there is such a need for foster parents. There is a greater need than we currently have, you know, willing families to participate and to serve. So thank you for doing that. I hope that your story will encourage other people to contact NIAP or some other agency to be a foster family. It is very important. It's the next generation, and these are our most vulnerable kids. So I commend you for being on that journey, and certainly for your faith in the process. Could you talk to us just a little bit about how your faith kept you through?
It's what got us through. It is what got us through. I can remember thinking, okay, God, why? I've loved kids all my life. Why can we only have one child? You know, one child. And I was in a really dark place for a while. I was angry. We both were. You know, we were newly married. Like I said, we had been married 2 years and found out. And today, actually.
Yeah, today's our anniversary. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, happy anniversary.
Yeah, thank you. So, you know, we had been newly married, and to get that news as a newly married couple, it was tough. And so
Well, I think it's a God thing that you're here today on your anniversary for this gala, you know?
Yeah. So when we finally decided to pick up, you know, the pieces and get to where we were in a spot where we felt like we could love others, our biggest thing was we didn't want our oldest son to grow up by himself. Not that there's anything wrong with only children, but we both didn't come from that. And so we wanted our oldest to have a sibling. And that was our biggest concern. And so when we think back about our faith, I think that, you know, it was definitely tested. I could see 100%, and I knew it was in the moment, but looking back now and seeing God's story is just one of the biggest joys that I hold.
Yeah. John?
Like she said, you know, it was a pretty dark spot there for a little bit, you know. It was scary, you know. But I mean, you know, just praying about it, and we got through it, and we've worked together, you know. We've leaned on each other for.
Yeah, because going through what you went through is hard. And then everything that has led to you being here today. But I do see God at work, certainly in your lives, and in His ability to shine through you for others. So thank you. What could and what recommendations do you have to the federal government or the state government, policymakers, for how to make things better, how to improve support for foster families?
I think what we had previously touched on before with that bill that was signed and put into place, I think that has helped. But I think that there's also a degree of support that I feel like could be offered. And I don't know if that's something that the federal or state governments, obviously through the federal agencies and state agencies could be offered, but sometimes it feels like you're on an island and you have no support of, you feel like the agencies are against you and you feel like you're the bad guy, but you're the parents that are under the microscope. But then the other side of the parents can do whatever they please, and want, but then step in at any moment. And I think that's the hardest part. And if those gaps could be closed, of just to make it a unity, I understand there are rights as a parent, but to make it more of a unity, and I think that's what everybody's striving for. Obviously, one of the biggest things that I think is an elephant in the room is the financial burden of it. I do know that we were able to receive some support, but fighting for that support was...
That is a big issue, one that we tried to solve at the state level. I think that we could have a conversation about how to fix that at the federal level, encouraging states to be more supportive of adoptive families, because there are challenges that come with that. And you go from having a certain level of foster care per diem for the care of these kids that are in your custody, and then you move to the adoption stage, and that support often goes away. And if we want to encourage families to adopt, some kids, not all kids that go into foster care, but some do have additional challenges that may or may not be known until many years after an adoption takes place, and so that support should be available. So I'm certainly happy to continue to have those conversations about how, from the federal level, we can encourage states to be more supportive and include foster families in those conversations. And you certainly should not feel like the bad guy. It should not be contentious. It should be a partnership between the agencies and the families and the foster families. It can't always be that way. We do have circumstances where children can't go home, and they're not going to go home. I also wonder if it would be helpful to allow a new license or a different type of license. So you could be licensed as foster care, or you could be licensed as foster to adopt. And if that clarity might be helpful, so that as I'm a caseworker, I know, you don't know, I don't have a crystal ball to know which kids are going to be in or out, but if you know a child is on an adoption plan, placing them in a foster to adopt home that is willing, ready and willing, I think could be helpful for all involved, and eliminate some of this heartbreak and just heartache that comes with it. But it is such a blessing that you can open your homes and have opened your home to these kids who are really our most vulnerable, and for no reason on their own. They just are victims of their circumstance, and giving them even a few months or weeks of a happy time is very meaningful, let alone opening your hearts and your homes for a lifetime and becoming mom and dad. And I've known you guys for a long time. You're mom and dad to probably just about any kid that might come knocking. You guys are just really great people, great members of our community, and we're just so grateful for you being here, and I'm honored to give you this Angels in Adoption Award.
We appreciate it.
I hope you'll have fun at the gala tonight. What are you looking forward to about this celebration that you're being honored tonight?
Just probably getting to meet other people, all the other families that are, in the same situation we are.
Yeah, that'll be great. And you've got some more meetings today on Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
And you're going to meet with some of the other members of the Indiana delegation to help share your story of adoption. I think that's terrific.
Yes.
Well, thanks for stopping by to talk to us. And I do have a final question that I always ask our guests. This podcast is called The Contender. Contenders are about, sticking things out even when it's difficult. It started with, my husband talking about how we should contend for our faith, which that's very obvious in the way that you guys live your lives. But things aren't always easy, and you have to stick it out. And despite difficult circumstances, you, with a positive attitude, hard work, and some fun in the mix, you get through. You get through it. And so, who is a contender, or who has been a contender for you? Tell us a story about that person and why.
It's hard to narrow down just one person. We've had so many people, support us and help us and, go to bat for us all along the way. I mean, honestly, I can't narrow down one person.
What about you, Emily?
We had this conversation. I said I've thought of so many different angles and avenues, and to pick one person, I mean, obviously, I think we've said it enough, but I think truly God was our contender.
That's amazing.
in that. But the support that we have and have had in the past through it all, I couldn't pick just one. I mean, there's so many people that have touched and been a part of our story.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't have happened without God.
So all of those team members and friends and family that show up for you, they're your contenders.
They are.
I think
Every
that's
single one
terrific.
of them.
We could fill a bus with people.
Well, that is a blessing in and of itself, really, and a testament to the kind of people that both of you are, how giving you are. What you give, you get in return, and you get it in spades from people who care about you. So I'm going to give you your pin and your certificate. So here is your award. I will present it to you. From the Congressional Coalition on Adoption, we hereby recognize Emily and John Gibson as 2025 Angels in Adoption for extraordinary contributions on behalf of a world in which every child knows the love and support of a permanent family. So there's your certificate. And here is your, if I can get this on the camera, your angel pin for being an angel in adoption.
Thank you.
So you can wear that to your celebration
Yes.
tonight.
Oh, look, it's an angel.
Yeah.
That's very cool. We're very honored.
Yeah.
Well, you've earned it. You deserve it. That's my honor to give you the recognition that I'm so grateful for everything that you've done, and I know you'll continue to do for these kids.
We appreciate every bit of that, but your support as well.
Yeah, my
Thank
pleasure.
you very much.
My pleasure. Well, Emily and John, thank you again for taking time to share your experience. I hope it will encourage others to go on a foster care journey and be moved by your faith in the process, and just really encouraged. It's something special. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Contender. Don't forget to subscribe, share the podcast, and stay inspired to contend, work hard, and have fun. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.